Imagine loading everything you own into a small wooden boat in the middle of the night. Not a moving truck, not a ferry, a whaleboat, maybe 30 feet long, maybe less. You load your children first, then your wife, then whatever you can carry, a chest of clothes, a bag of grain, a few tools. You push off from a shore you've known your whole life. The British are a mile away. You don't know if you'll make it across. You don't know if you'll ever come back. This happened to thousands of Long Island families in the autumn of 1776. And almost nobody talks about them. Welcome to Northeast Cold Case, where we dig into the hidden histories of the northeastern United States. Not the battles you learned in school, not the generals, the ordinary people, the farmers, the mothers, the tradespeople, whose stories got buried under 2 centuries of other people's narratives. This is episode 1 of our series on the Long Island refugees of 1776. Over the next 9 episodes, we're going to follow these families across the Sound and into the Connecticut towns where they tried to rebuild their lives and where their descendants still live today. Let's start at the beginning. To understand why families fled, you have to understand what happened in the summer of 1776 and how fast everything collapsed. In late August of 1776, British General William Howe landed roughly 32,000 troops on Long Island, the largest single deployment of British forces in the entire Revolutionary War. Washington's Continental Army was badly outnumbered. Within days, the Battle of Long Island, also called the Battle of Brooklyn, was over. It was one of the worst American defeats of the entire war. Washington managed a desperate nighttime retreat across the East River into Manhattan, but Long Island was gone. By September, the British had taken New York City as well. By the end of that year, Washington's remaining forces had been pushed all the way back across the Delaware River into New Jersey. Long Island was now occupied territory, and it would remain that way for the next 7 years until the British finally evacuated New York in November 1783. 7 years. Think about that. Not a few months of wartime disruption. 7 years under martial law. For the families who stayed on Long Island, occupation wasn't abstract. It was immediate, personal, and relentless. British soldiers were quartered directly in private homes, meaning a family might find themselves sleeping in their own barn while officers ate at their kitchen table. Livestock was seized, crops were confiscated, firewood was taken without payment, fences were torn down for fuel. And then there were the loyalty oaths. Starting in October 1776, British commanders required male residents of Long Island, men between the ages of 16 and 60, to swear an oath of allegiance to the Crown. The names were recorded. If you refused, or if you were suspected of helping the Patriots, the consequences were severe. The worst fate was the prison ships moored in Wallabout Bay near Brooklyn. These were decommissioned hulks, dark, disease-ridden, overcrowded. Historians estimate that approximately 11,000 prisoners died aboard those ships from starvation and disease during the war. More American deaths than in all the battles of the Revolution combined. For a Patriot family on Long Island in the fall of 1776, the calculation was stark: stay and submit, or go. But going wasn't simple either. The British had ordered the destruction of every boat, wharf, and naval store on Long Island, specifically to prevent Patriots from leaving or from communicating with the Connecticut shore. And yet, they went anyway. In October 1776, the Continental Congress passed a resolution urging the inhabitants of Suffolk County to remove as many of their women, children, and slaves, and as much of their livestock and grain as they can, to the Connecticut mainland. What followed was remarkable. More than 129 ships made crossings. Long Wharf in Sag Harbor, a spot you can stand on today and watch pleasure boats go by, was crowded with families waiting for passage. They brought what they could carry: chests of clothes, bags of seed, livestock if it could be loaded. One family's reimbursement bill to the new government included 3 loads of flax, 2 loads of oats, 15 large hogs, and 20 bushels of turnips. That's not fleeing, that's moving a farm. Historians estimate that roughly 5,000 patriots fled Long Island for Connecticut in this first wave. The crossings weren't safe. The British had standing orders to stop them. That's where the whaleboats came in. Small, fast, low in the water. Whaleboats were the workhorses of Long Island Sound during the Revolution. Patriots who had spent their lives fishing and oystering now used those same boats to smuggle families, carry intelligence, and raid Loyalist positions along both shores. They crossed mostly at night. They knew the tides. They knew which coves to aim for and which ones to avoid. They landed on the Connecticut shore at dozens of different points, some at established wharves, others at quiet beaches where a waiting cart could carry the family inland before dawn. And when they arrived in Connecticut, they weren't just survivors. They were refugees in the full modern sense of the word, dependent on the charity of strangers, the resources of a state already strained by war, and their own determination to outlast an occupation that, at the time, no one knew would last 7 years. The families who crossed Long Island Sound in 1776 largely disappear from the standard histories at this point. The war moves on. The battles move south. The generals get the attention. But those families didn't disappear. They arrived in towns like Stamford, New London, Middletown, and New Haven. They enrolled children in Connecticut churches. They buried their elderly in Connecticut ground. They signed Connecticut documents. And many of them, when the war finally ended, had to decide whether to go back to Long Island or stay in the place that had taken them in. That's the story this series is going to follow. In episode 2, we're going to zoom in on a single crossing, a boat that left from the north shore of Long Island, near Oyster Bay, and landed on the Connecticut shore near Stamford. We're going to walk through what that crossing probably looked like, who was on it, and what they found when they arrived. If you have ancestors who came from Long Island to Connecticut during the Revolution, this series is for you. Drop a comment below with your family's name and town. I read every one, and some of them may end up in future episodes. If this is the kind of history you've been looking for, subscribe and hit the bell. We're just getting started.